following is a disclaimer for riverwestradio.com. Welcome, my name is Michael Wordsworth, producer of Breaking Down the News. The things you will hear over the next 2.5 hours represent the views of Breaking Down the News and the people making them. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer. Guests and callers, River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. Thank goodness, huh? All right, we're going to start the show in a second here. Chill out. It's going to be an awesome show. Electrical pollution. Ooh. Streaming live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm your host. My name is Michael Wordsworth, and welcome to Breaking Down the News, the show that presents the news highlights of the week, but with a twist. Breaking Down the News is more concerned in bringing you information that wasn't covered on the front pages. Headlines you don't want to miss, because not listening could be dangerous to your freedom, liberty, and health. And good afternoon. This is Friday, June 22nd, 2012. Today's episode covers electrical pollution. It's an issue that I myself was not that familiar with. It is difficult to stay on top of all these issues, but today we're going to cover it pretty extensively. I wish I could make light of this issue. Lately I've been reading the news and trying to interject some comedic relief, but I don't know if that's going to be possible with this one. Maybe with the other articles I read later, but for now, I mean, some of this is just too disturbing. Electrical pollution, what is it? What are we dealing with? Well, that's today's show. Also, we're going to have a wonderful interview with Pamela Jafke. She's a veterinarian out in Clark County, Wisconsin. She's dealing with her own issue of the railroad from Canada put up a cell phone tower, and it is just spewing horrible
to chase howling wolf in his car.
Electromagnetic frequency waves, which are very damaging to people. So when I get back here, I'm going to take a short station ID and come back and just read you article after article. I'm going to put on, I'm going to have Pam on the line and do an interview with her. It's going to be good. It's going to be informative. I can't guarantee this show is going to be too comedic. I wish I could. I really do. It's always fun when I do the comedy, but this is pretty tough stuff. So, all right, right after this little commercial break, we'll be back and pounding out the news with Breaking Down the News. You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com. Are you tired of commercials always telling you that you're tired when you know you're tired because you wake up early and go to bed late, and every moment in between is spent trying to figure out how you're going to make that next dollar? Well, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are walking around in a sleep-deprived, zombie-like state, amplified by psych meds and pharmaceuticals found in their drinking water. So just be glad you're not one of them, unless you are, in which case I'm sorry you had to hear this. But wait, there's more. If we keep at this current pace, we will surely lose our democratic republic and soon be standing in food lines for the poisonous rations the new totalitarian government will hand out. Don't delay. Get involved. Get informed. And we're back. Today's article, starting off with electrical pollution, comes from Natural News on June 20th, 2012. This article by D. Holt. Wi-Fi, invisible threat that pulls apart DNA, causing genetic disorders and cancer. We are all exposed to electromagnetic radiation constantly on a daily basis, from mobile phones, Wi-Fi hotspots, power lines, and electrical appliances. The source of this pollution are many and varied, each having its own range of wavelength, frequency, and intensity. How does the artificial electromagnetic soup that we bathe in every day affect our most precious gift, our DNA? Our DNA is a polar molecule which is affected by charged particles and electromagnetic fields, much in the same way as other polar molecules are. Put simply, a polar molecule, such as water, has predominantly negative and positive regions. The charge on the molecule will align itself with the direction of an electromagnetic field. When the field oscillates, then the molecule will switch from one direction to the other, resulting in increased temperatures. This is essentially the workings of the microwave oven. The issue with DNA, however, is not merely one of increasing temperature. Many studies into mobile phone frequency EM radiation have only studied the heating effects. While heating of the brain does occur, this is not the only cause of concern. The internal components of the DNA structure are rotated at different frequencies and different rates, and the external ribbons of deoxyribose and phosphate are rotated and pulled, unzipping the DNA. That's right, it unzips the DNA. With so many differing EME fields being transmitted by so many different sources, the DNA components attempt to turn to align with their respective fields. This causes rotational and tensile stresses on the molecule. The base pairs of the molecule are held together down the middle by weak hydrogen bonds, much the same as a zipper. These weak hydrogen bonds are used in replication, but are weak enough to be broken by the physical stresses put on the structure of the molecule. The result is damaged DNA structures that are unable to function in the way they are designed to do so. Damaged DNA results in many diseases such as genetic disorders, infertility, and cancer. The many studies into mobile phone use and overhead power lines have come to different conclusions depending upon who has carried out the studies. However, some results are universally proven. DNA is damaged by EM radiation. Heating of the brain occurs when a mobile phone is used, and cases of cancer have been observed in areas of the body consistently exposed to mobile phone frequency radiation. Despite evidence of the dangers, the use of EM devices is still rapidly on the increase with smart meters. We're going to go into smart meters 2-3 articles from now. You got to hear about these things. They're sitting on your houses right now. We're being bathed by these things, and I'll cover that in that article. But despite evidence of the dangers, the use of EM devices is still rapidly on the increase with smart meters, Wi-Fi, and more powerful next-generation mobile communications. This is in addition to the already numerous sources of electrical appliances, TV and radio signals, body scanners, overhead power lines, and even the wiring in the walls of your home. There is no doubt that more research needs to be done. But whilst the dangers are ignored in the search for profit, no amount of research will change the daily onslaught of this silent and invisible danger. That's right, ongoing. We're going to come back with more information regarding the damages, the potential hazards of electrical pollution. I'm Michael Wordsworth, back in a moment.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
Every day, people wake up all over the world and hear commercials like this one, with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember, these companies could give a flying fuck about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time. This article from Rodale at rodale.com covers genetically modified foods. Genes from GMO food do wind up in people, studies show. New research finds signs of genetic material and pesticides from genetically modified food in the bodies of babies and pregnant women. Are pesticides proliferating in your body? That's the question. They could be if you're eating genetically modified food. According to new research from Canadian scientists, the pesticides used on genetically modified crops, and in some cases the genes used to create GM crops, are able to survive in our digestive tracts, move into our bloodstreams, and in the case of pregnant women, show up into developing infants. The study in press in the journal Reproductive Toxicology contradicts that biotech companies are either misleading or inaccurate when they repeatedly reassure the government and public health organizations that genes and bacteria inserted into GM crops cannot survive the digestive tract. This quote, Monsanto and Environmental Protection Agency people swore up and down that it was only insects that would be hurt by GM crops, says Jeffrey Smith, founder of the Institute for Responsible Technology, a nonprofit devoted to educating the public about the risks of genetically modified crops. Well, they were wrong, he says. The details for the study: blood samples were drawn from a group of 30 healthy pregnant women and from 39 healthy non-pregnant women living in Quebec, Canada. The authors also took samples of umbilical cords, blood from the 30 pregnant women. Each sample was tested for residues of two pesticides commonly used on GM crops: glyphosate, sold as Roundup, and glufosinate ammonium, sold as Liberty and used on Liberty-linked genetically modified soy, corn, and canola. The researchers also tested for Cry1 abtoxin, which is produced by a gene derived from the bacterium Bacillus thuringiensis, also known as BT. The gene is injected into genetically modified BT corn and cotton. Glyphosate was detected in just 5% of non-pregnant women and not at all in the pregnant women or their baby's cord blood. Glufosinate was detected in 18% of the non-pregnant women and not at all in the pregnant women or infants, but a metabolite or breakdown product of the chemical was found in 100% of pregnant women's and fetal blood sample and in 67% of non-pregnant women's blood. The metabolite, 3-MPPA, has been shown to exhibit the same toxicological effects as its parent compound, namely that it can affect central nervous system development and is suspected of stunting growth. Cry1AB, the BT toxin, was detected in 93 and 80% of maternal and fetal blood samples, respectively, and in 69% of non-pregnant women. Studies have shown that BT toxins raise levels of certain antibodies associated with allergies and infections, as well as cytokines, chemicals in the body that trigger inflammatory responses. People with chronic inflammatory diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis have elevated levels of cytokines. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's cytokines. Studies from Monsanto, the company that makes BT corn and cotton, have been even shown liver and kidney problems in rats fed its BT crops. That's right, Monsanto. Well, you know what? We're going to do a little commercial from Monsanto. You want truth in advertising? All right, well, here, we'll give it to you right now. Listen up. The kitchen is the heart of the home, but at Monsanto, we're a megalithic agricultural group attempting to destroy farmers all across your country. We bring you horrible foods that attack your stomach lining, DNA, give you kidney and liver failure. Monsanto, bringing Franken foods to your family at home. Don't you just hate us? Say no to GMO. Well, nature is fighting back against GMO crops, the very things that they were designed to attack. Nature fights back. Bugs devour GM Monsanto corn with a vengeance. Yay, bugs. For once, you're actually on our side. This article from Natural News. Corn, genetically engineered by Monsanto to kill Western corn rootworm, is reportedly being devoured by those pests with a vengeance. Thanks to heavy resilience on the genetically modified GM crops, the TD rootworm pest has overtaken the fields, outsmarting the genetic engineering that was supposed to keep it away. Nature fights back. The GM corn, launched in 2003, is engineered to produce a protein known as Cry3BB1, derived from a bacterium known as Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT. In theory, rootworms ingest BT corn roots, and the protein is fatal. However, recent reports indicate that the pesticide-resistant rootworms are showing up weeks earlier and more voraciously than ever. In a research paper published in the July, August, September 2012 issue of the journal, GM Crops and Food, scientists reported that samples taken in 2010 indicated that rootworm populations had an 11-fold survival rate on Cry3BB1. Maize that did control populations. The paper noted that the resistant corn rootworm populations first identified in 2009 had 3-fold survival rates on Cry3BB1 maize at that time compared to other populations. Mike Gray, a professor of entomology with the University of Illinois, reported, quote, "We're still early in the growing season and the adults are about a month ahead of schedule," explained Gray. He goes on to say, "I was surprised to see them, and there were a lot." Reports of increasing rootworm damage began coming in last year after Iowa State University researcher Aaron Gassman published a study saying that the rootworms in Iowa were becoming resistant to GM corn, creating so-called super bugs. Farmers in several states found that the Western corn rootworm was surviving after ingesting an insecticidal toxin produced by the corn plants. With both demand and prices high, many farmers are planting corn year after year and on more acres, increasing the possibility that resistance could develop. Typically, corn farmers have had to rotate corn crops to minimize pest pressures. But with BT corn, many simply planted corn on corn year after year. Federal regulators require 20% refuge of non-BT corn near BT acres, but many growers have ignored that and oversight has been lax. The new superbug rootworms may lead to serious financial woes for both farmers and the rest of us, according to a letter sent to the Environmental Protection Agency by 22 prominent scientists and corn management experts from the U.S. Department of Agriculture and universities across the Midwestern Corn Belt. Patrick Porter, Ph.D., associate professor at Texas A&M University, who drafted the letter, noted that farmers are paying almost twice as much for seeds that don't live up to their promises, and are then having to resort to insecticides on top of that. The potential result, according to Porter, is a crop failure which could raise food prices at the grocery store. Porter said, quote, "If farmers start taking damage from any pest that will lower yields, that will reduce the supply of corn and increase prices." Porter also noted that when prices for corn go up, more farmers start planting corn despite the risks. And when growers shift to growing more of one crop, they grow less of the other crops, and those crops' prices also go up. Adding to GM crop concerns, recent research from Canadian scientists found that pesticides used on genetically modified GM crops, and in some cases the genes used to create GM crops, are able to survive in our digestive tracts, move into our bloodstreams, and, in the case of pregnant women, show up in their developing infants. The research contradicts repeated contentions by Monsanto and the EPA that only insects would be hurt by GM crops. Well, we know that's not true now. It's just a matter of time, right? Don't mess with nature too hard, too heavy. It's just a strange situation. It's completely unnatural. There's no way that nature itself could have ever fabricated such combinations like this. The way scientists are literally shooting with, they call it a gene gun. They shoot animal genes into plant genes, insect genes into plant genes, and if the little genetic DNA components stick, they reform into a new hybrid, one that's not natural, that could never be done. Nature doesn't have the ability to shoot individual genes repeatedly into a DNA sequence to make sure it sticks. And that's what our scientists are doing. It's not the only thing they're doing. I mean, I'm all for technology, but we have to have it with wisdom. Our wisdom must match our technological advancement. It's not, and that's why we have many lessons to learn over the next century. Guess that's what it's all about. It's a big learning experience. When we come back, we're going to cover more on electrical pollution. These new smart meters, it's just amazing. I'm going to take a short, 12-second break. That's all I get the rest of my voice here. 12 seconds, and then I'm going to read a very long article covering extensively the damages of smart meters. Then shortly after that, we have an interview, a wonderful interview with Pamela Jafke coming up. She's going to talk about her situation up in Clark County, Wisconsin, and it's very interesting. It's something that could happen to any one of us, and that's why we need to listen to it. All right, back in a moment. This article from electricalpollution.com, smart meters. Transmitting smart meters pose a serious threat. Transmitting smart meters are being installed nationwide on gas, water, and electrical service, driven in part by funding for the Smart Grid program approved as part of the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. This is a great concern because the exposure to microwave and radio wave radiation from these meters is involuntary and continuous. The transmitting meters may not even comply with Federal Communications FCC safety standards. However, those standards were initially designed to protect an average male from tissue heating, cooking during a brief exposure. These standards were not designed to protect the diverse population from the non-thermal effects of continuous exposure to microwave and radio wave radiation. Therefore, these safety standards were not designed to protect the public from health problems under the circumstances which the meters are being used. The transmitting meters, most often being used, transmit continuously every few seconds. This is picked up by a receiver and logged by the utility. You are exposed to the transmissions from all the meters within the transmitting range. The meters often have a range of over 2 miles. Thus, the exposure is continuous, and the safety standards the meters comply with are irrelevant to the situation. Some transmitting meters transmit at less frequent intervals. However, they still seem to be causing health problems. This could be due to the still elevated levels of radio waves and microwaves in the neighborhood because of all the neighbors' transmitters. Remember, many meters are transmitting at these intervals. Well, one of the guest topics we're going to have is Pamela Jafke. She's going to be right here in a second. We thank her for coming on the show. It's a big help to us. I'm Michael Wordsworth. This is Breaking Down the News on Friday, June 22nd, 2012. Come back, and we're going to talk to Pam. All right. See you in a second.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
All right, we're back. I am Michael Wordsworth. You're listening to Breaking Down the News on this Friday edition. We have a horrible situation up north in Clark County. Thank goodness Pamela Jafke is on the case. They've erected a cell phone tower, and for many of you that don't know, these towers are damaging. They put out EMF waves that affect the minds, affect the bodies, affect nature in general. The whole problem could be solved with a simple $35 part. Pamela, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. And I do want to get the word out because most people are not aware of the dangers of these cell towers. They see them go up, and they don't know the problem. And I do want to say that my city of Owen has been working with me, and we did pass a very comprehensive cell tower ordinance. So I do applaud the city, but they're not getting any cooperation from the cell tower owners within the city.
So you do have the support of the city council at this moment?
Yes, I do.
Oh, thank goodness.
And I've been very, very grateful. They've worked with me. I worked with the lawyer to draft the ordinance, and yeah, they have been very helpful. It's the cell tower people who are in total disrespect of any of the codes, ordinances out there, and totally disrespectful of the people that and animals that they're harming. And this dovetails into the whole entire electrical pollution problem, where the whole electrical grid is just not able to support the electricity that's out there right now. And so electricity in general is, we're being harmed from it. But I'll talk to that in a minute.
Please.
The problem with cell towers, one of the problems, there's two problems. One of them is that the strobe light on top, that flashing light every 1.5 seconds, it creates a 2.5 million hertz cycle, and the normal electrical cycle is 60, so 2.5 million is a long way from 60.
Wow, and that is a lot. That's a huge difference.
That's a long way from 60, and what happens is that our electrical wiring is so bad that every 1.5 seconds, 10,000 volts goes up to the strobe light, and then every time it flashes, this transient or spike in the 60 cycle wave, this 2.5 million spike, comes down on the electrical wiring. Well, the wiring normally can't handle it for reasons I'll explain later, and so it goes into the ground. It goes on the general wiring instead of being neutralized. It's actually strong enough when it's on the wiring in your house, according to an electrical engineer I've been in contact with, to penetrate the walls. And so if it can penetrate, the plaster in the walls, what is it doing, after it penetrates, the walls? What is it doing to the human body?
Wow.
I have a cat that is very sensitive to the electrical pollution because I did have bad wiring in my house, and she was exposed to it for a long time. I've since rewired my entire house. And when that cell tower went up, me as a veterinarian, I pulled out all the stops, and only because I'm a veterinarian, I think my cat is still alive today. And I noticed problems. You have problems sleeping, fatigue, even ringing in the ears, muscle pain. It's a whole gamut of. The bottom line is, what we call an RF choke, which is RF for radio frequency choke. It's a simple $35 part. It's a coil of wires you put around the wiring that's going up to the strobe light, and think of an acid neutralizing a base. I mean, it neutralizes that transient. It's not a big deal to fix it.
A $35 part.
A $35 part.
Who's holding up that part being put up there? I mean, that's the question. You can't get the owners to stick it on there?
Right. I mean, the railroad put the tower up, and they, contracted, obviously, a company. They're in the railroad business, not the cell tower business. So they contracted somebody to put the tower up. And, I've called the railroad, and they really do need to get somebody to teach them public relations.
Which railroad is this?
Canadian National.
Canadian National. Huh.
So I'm also dealing with the foreign company. So that's just wonderful.
On American soil, of course.
Yes.
Goodness.
And,
yeah.
And they have been totally disrespectful. I've never been treated more rudely. When I got an electrical engineer on, who was certified by the Wisconsin Supreme Court as an expert witness, so they couldn't buffalo him. Of course, since I'm just a veterinarian and not an electrical engineer, I'm there in a box of rocks. And then they kind of started singing a new tone and said that, we'll talk. We need to be good neighbors. We'll get it on. It's like I was.
Okay, one more time, because I really want to slam these guys. The name of it's Canadian Pacific.
Canadian National, CN.
CN. Oh, we've seen them on their little rail cars all the time, the CN logo.
Canadian National.
Okay.
So it never got put up. I talked to somebody who referred me to somebody else in the food chain, and after talking with him a couple times, and, well, we don't know anything about cell towers, and I said, well, let me give you the name of somebody who does. And then he, after about the third or fourth conversation, and I did actually document the date and the time of every one of these conversations, and when I talked to them and what they told me, I didn't record it, but I wrote it down. He admitted that, gee, if we do it for you, we have to do it for everybody.
And
I thought, you paid Elgin, Illinois, $11 million in some settlement. So if you got $11 million to throw around to give out to Elgin, Illinois, I think you can afford a $35 park times 300 towers.
300 towers times 35, so we're talking about 900 and about 1,050, something like that. It would cost them $1,000 around to fix
and they
this
threw
problem.
out Elgin, Illinois, $11 million. But they can't put up a $35 cell tower, RF choke.
You would think it'd be cheaper from a PR standpoint for them to just do this, the $1,000 and then avoid the problem.
You would think, because the cell tower ordinance that the city of Owen passed says if you can't prove that you're in compliance, and believe me,
they're not in compliance. Yeah,
they're not in compliance because the Public Service Commission 113.701 to .705 states it regulates cell towers, and the public, and in there it says it shall not deviate from a 60 cycle hertz, from a 60 cycle sine wave. Electricity from the tower shall not deviate from a 60 cycle sine wave. Well, guess what? 2.5 million is a long way from 60. So the city of Owen, they couldn't force towers to say, okay, now that you're up, you have to put this RF choke on. They went through the back door, and I give the lawyer a lot of credit. He says, on July 1st, every year you have to submit paperwork to prove that you're in compliance with IEEE Standards 519 and Public Service Code Commission 113.701 to .705. You have to prove that you're in compliance, or else it's a $1,000 a day fine.
And that's a county ordinance?
The city of Owen.
City ordinance. Yeah, so I wonder.
And it's like the problem. There was a Telecommunications Act passed in 1996 that basically written by the telecommunications industry that pretty much gave them unlimited towers. We had to make sure when we wrote that ordinance that the word health was not used in that ordinance, because it is illegal to sue a cell tower owner if you suffer ill effects from the cell tower on your health. That's the telecommunications wrote that in there, that it is illegal to sue them.
How did that happen? I mean, they built
because
that in.
They bought off everybody on Capitol Hill. How does everything happen?
On the state level, you're saying?
No, this is on a federal level. This is a federal Telecommunications Act of 1996.
Of course,
so
gotcha.
they think that they are immune to any regulation, but the Telecommunications Act, thank goodness, did leave the placement and the function up to local control. So there is some zoning ordinance. But if I win, and to me it's not really winning, it's just following the law.
Right.
If I get them to cooperate, then I've set a precedence. And that's the last thing they want, is a precedence set.
Oh, Pam, you got to keep on with this, because we need that precedent set.
That is the last thing they want. And there's another cell tower in town, right by the school, and it's like, oh, great, fry all the kids and teachers' brains. I mean, can you get a worse place for a cell tower than a school?
Can you help me envision this thing? How tall is this tower? Approximately.
I'll tell you, a standard silo is 60, 70 feet, so it's got to be
4 or 5 stories.
Let's see, 250 feet tall, maybe.
And then, how far does this electromagnetic frequency broadcast out to affect the health of people and animals around you?
Cows, since I'm a dairy veterinarian, cows are horribly affected by bad electricity. And there was a cell tower went up, and they switched from a rotating beacon, which was fine. I mean, just a simple light rotating beacon, to these strobe lights, and the production went way down, and
the milk production went down.
Milk production of the cows went way down. They were severely affected because every 1.5 seconds they were getting this 2.5, megahertz transient hitting them, and it can travel for miles. When I say miles, 5, 6, 7 miles.
Okay, that was my question.
And so they put the RF choke on the tower sometime, during the day, and that evening milking. So, I mean, it wasn't even 12 hours. It was maybe like 4 or 5 hours that the RF choke was on the tower. Those cows were up 7 pounds per cow per day.
7 pounds per cow per day.
They went up that evening milking. So if you take, all the milk that the cows produce divided by number of cows, let's say they were on average producing 60 pounds, because you have some cows in low lactation, some cows just fresh, whatever. Let's say that, just throw out a number, 65 pounds they were milking. That night they went up to 72 on average. They went up 7 pounds. So you can't tell me that this stuff doesn't affect people and animals. I mean, that is documented. I mean, weights are documented because, the milk company picks up the milk and records the weight. So, I mean, there's no question.
And you might not be an electrical engineer, but you are an expert as a veterinarian, and definitely you're qualified to say, hey, this is affecting the production of these animals.
Yeah, it wasn't, my particular practice that this happened, but it's, I mean, I've seen the effect on my cat. In terms of
what was
all the different issues.
Your cat wouldn't sleep in a certain area of the house because of this, or was that related to your smart meter?
That's related to my smart meter.
Okay.
That she will not touch a certain area of the house. She stays at least 90% of the time she spends in the room that's catty corner to the smart meter, as far away from that as she can.
Boy, I want to thank you, because this is an issue I personally was not aware of, and I know a lot of people. We've heard about cell towers, cell phones, EM pollution, but it's something that we really haven't let sink in how serious of an issue this is. I mean, basically, we're being bombarded.
Serious. We are being irradiated to death by numerous sources. Smart meters are like the second, another whole issue other than cell towers.
Right, you brought that into, I could not believe that. Basically, people, if you're listening out there, Pamela Jaffke's on the line here. She's from Clark County. Cell phone tower went up, and she's saying that, look, it's putting out way too much power. The whole problem can be fixed with the $35 part. But the smart meters are a new type of meter that's put on your homes that is digital and no longer has the little rotating dials. And I wasn't sure if we had replaced ours here in the city, and I went out and looked, and by golly, if they aren't digital meters out there. And thank goodness that Pam brought this to my attention, because the previous property I was sleeping in, I had one about 8 feet from my head on the back side of the wall. And Pam, I'm not kidding. I would put my head down on the pillow, and I thought I would hear music. I thought I was going insane, because when I put my head up off the pillow, I couldn't hear the music anymore. And I don't mean like an actual audio sound.
Your head was being irradiated. I mean, it sends out radio waves. And besides the electrical pollution problem, there's a privacy problem with those, because they're like little FM radios. Police are using them as an invasion of privacy. It's illegal search and seizure. It goes against our Constitution.
Okay. Now, do you know how that works? Are you saying that it actually can pick up audio? I know you can transmit data through power lines.
The police department they were busting people for, they were picking up like electrical usage, I think, for growing marijuana, but I don't know exactly how but it sends out a radio wave just like an FM radio, and they were picking up. And I don't know exactly what they were picking up, but, they're using it as they were making arrests. They were getting search warrants based on what they were finding from the signals they were picking up from the smart meters on your home. And I'm sorry, that's wiretapping.
That is wiretapping. I mean, that's an incredible, I believe that's a violation of the Fourth Amendment.
Yeah, illegal search and seizure.
Illegal search, and it's illegal because, look, how would you...
I don't have any permission to have somebody, I didn't say you could eavesdrop on me.
Right. You know, I detest that attitude that some people have where they say, well, look, if you weren't doing anything, you wouldn't be concerned. And I'm like, are you serious? You have no... What?
No sense of privacy?
Well, here's the thing. We know if we put microphones inside the senator, congressman, even the police chiefs, a lot of police chiefs in this country are the drug dealers in your towns. That's the only... You got to ask yourself, how do these drugs get in? Why do these low-level guys always get arrested, but the main guys that bring it in never get brought down? And, well, we basically know the answer to that because they're untouchable.
So, yeah, besides smart meters basically frying us, you know, basically I'm now living in a microwave.
Oh, gee. I mean, that's what it is. It's a microwave transmitter. Is that the best way to look at that?
It's, yeah, I've actually got some information. It transmits, yeah, I mean, it's actually got like a signal, like an FM radio would have a
Right,
signal.
right, okay.
But let me find another. But it's mind-boggling that these smartphones or these smart meters, you know, that they were put on without any regard for safety, without any regard for anything.
Well, right. Nothing. Not the constitutional considerations, not the health considerations. It almost makes you wonder. I mean, they get all bent out of shape for the dumbest things these days. But we actually have these death towers. Let's just call them death towers. Because that's what they are. I mean, they're basically killing us, slowly affecting our brains, our DNA. I bet you.
Health.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the smart meters are directly connected to the wiring in customers' homes. The radio frequency energy they emit not only travels to the air, but is conducted onto the wiring and surrounds customers in their homes. Reports of sleep disturbances, headaches, dizziness, nausea, fatigue, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, ringing in the ears. I never had ringing in the ears till a couple years ago. I'm not that old. Yeah. Memory loss and difficulty concentrating are widespread.
And a lot of people out there are going to their doctors trying to get some sort of magic pill to solve this problem, when actually you just need to remove the microwave oven outside your house that's blasting your brain.
Basically, yes.
I shouldn't laugh, but I mean, it's laugh or cry. You take your pick.
Yeah, and I've been in contact with my utility, Xcel Energy. I have, asked to have the smart meter removed. They look at me like I'm nuts. And I said, well, and I even quoted the Public Service Commission code that says, first of all, the Public Service Commission said, well, it's up to the utilities as to what kind of meter. And I said, well, guess what? According to your own Public Service Commission code, it states right there that you can override, any law, that has been written if the health of the consumer mandates a change in the law. So I said, you've got the power to tell the utilities that if the smart meters are harming people, that they need to go back to analog meters. Well, it took them a while to answer me because they were probably trying to think of somehow. And they answered back, and it was a form letter, and it said the same thing, that we cannot help you. The utilities have the final say in what kind of meters. And I thought, God help us.
This becomes a situation again where it's not we're fighting for the control of our local government and to maintain, and by control, I don't mean from a control freak standpoint. My goodness, Pamela here is just trying to keep from her cat, herself, her fellow neighbors from the tower by the school. This is something where just like, I mean, people, if they say they care, you can't bombard children. And nobody signed a waiver. Nobody gave permission for this. Pam, do you suspect that this is one of those regional government issues where we're getting legislation and policy handed down to us from some sort of obviously it's foreign. They're coming from Canada. I don't know who owns that railroad, but...
Yeah, Canadian National owns, the cell tower. The Public Service Commission has been funded by fees from the utilities instead of being funded by the general fund here in Wisconsin. So who do you think they answer to?
The guy
people
with the
that
money.
pay them.
Yep.
They're paid by the utilities. Their answer to the utilities. I mean, we are just, a fly on an elephant's butt to them.
Right.
And they are not, for 30 years, they have let the electrical companies in terms of the electrical pollution, but some people refer to it as straight voltage. I hate that term because it implies that nobody's responsible, and that's a terrible term. It's electrical pollution.
Yes.
They, the people they're supposed to protect are so far down the line that we're not even in the same picture. They are owned, bought, and paid for, and I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if anybody from the Public Service Commission hears this. I have the letters to back up what I'm saying, what you wrote to me. The last thing you care about is my concerns. You are bought and paid for by the utilities. And I don't care. You can sue me if you want. I'd love it.
And when I hear the incongruency, if they're willing to shell out $11 million to cover some liability issue, but then at the same time they won't take the preventative measures from the get-go when they put up these towers, sounds to me, and I'm just inclined to be cynical this way, maybe there's a deeper reason for this. Maybe there is this is something that they wanted in place. I mean, obviously, you tell it. I mean, I know you wouldn't tell me, but there's no scientists out there, no electrical engineers that understand the damaging health effects of both smart meters and cell towers.
There's thousands.
There's thousands. So why are their voices silent on this issue? That's what I want to know. I mean, if they're listening...
They've tried. I mean, Dave Stetzer, he has gone before the legislature so many times. He's gone to the utilities. People have been fighting this issue for years, decades. And there's just so much money involved on the side of the utilities and the side of the telecommunications industry. And it's been slapped around so much,
But is it a situation, are they just trying to save money, or is there any way... I mean, how can we put up... I know there's a lot of poisonous things everywhere, but, I mean, what's the agenda behind this? Why would a company do this? I mean, we're their paying customers. Don't we use cell phones to buy their electricity? And
it's all money. And again, they don't want to be regulated. The telecommunications industry, that's why they wrote their own law to make sure that they're not regulated. It's mind-boggling. It all comes down to money. Let's the third leg of the stool. We have the cell towers, we have the smart meters, and we have just plain old electrical pollution that I've also been fighting. The utilities are allowed to shove electricity into the ground instead of put it on a wire and take it back to the substation.
Okay.
Electrons always want to go home. They're homing pigeons. So they're going to find a way home. So when you shove the electricity in the ground, they're going to eventually use the ground to get back to the substation. My house happens to be in the path of a lot of ground current.
And that's a non-directed current when it returns versus going through a wire. It's just sort of
right.
its path.
It follows the path of least resistance. It goes wherever it goes. Just think of when you spill a glass of milk on a table, it just spreads out everywhere. Well, that's what the electrical current is doing.
Ooh, we're just bathing in it, huh?
Yeah, and it travels on the surface, and the Public Service Commission allowed them to do this back in like 1980, 81, and I'm speaking for Wisconsin. I don't know about the rest of the country. And it was supposed to be just a temporary fix because what was happening is electrical usage was increasing to the point where the wires' voltage is a measure of pressure. And the pressure was so high on the wires that they couldn't take the pressure anymore. It's like when you have a two-lane highway and you expand and you need to go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes because there's just so much traffic. Well, instead of rewiring and putting up bigger wires that would handle the electrical current and putting up a big enough neutral to handle the return flow back to the substation, they shove electricity into the ground.
Okay.
And that's why, one of the reasons the cell tower, it can't handle that 2.5 million transient that's produced is because the wiring is so poor.
It's hard to get my mind wrapped around that 2.5 million figure. I mean, you're saying 60 megahertz is what's allowed?
Is normal.
Yeah, normal.
60, if you think back to physics, that kind of looks like a wave motion, that sine wave, 60 cycle per second.
Okay.
And what's produced on the cell tower is 2.5 million, and the wiring cannot handle that. But the wiring can handle, just even a general household. The wiring is so poor. I had Excel come out and look at the wiring behind my house. It's so old, the insulation is shredded, and it's just bare wires. And he says, well, those wires are older than you and me.
Okay.
And he was probably 60.
Are they nylon wrapped? I know they used to take the wires and put the cloth wrap on them.
No, that's disintegrated. It's just
right. That's like 100 years ago or something they did that.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And do you think that they would? But they say it would cost too much money to update. What would really cost them is because every time you've got all this trash on the line, all this garbage that should be on the neutral, taken back to the substation. You've got wires that can't handle the trash. You've got all these crappy currents. All this electrical pollution makes your meter spin faster.
Oh, wow, I never thought of that.
So guess what? They don't want to fix the problem because they are raping us on our electric bills.
Oh, I see. It's just we're getting charged for it, but we're not getting an efficient use of that power that we pay for.
Exactly.
Wow.
So do you think there's any incentive for them to upgrade their lines?
Well,
when if they actually upgrade their lines, hey, you can double my bill. If you upgrade my lines, my bill will probably drop in half, and we're back to square one.
And all the time, we got all these green movements out there, people talking about pollution and excessive use of energy, and here it turns out we're just wasting it. It's just kind of like, what would be if we had a water faucet, and you just got that thing open full blast, but when you go to tap into that hose, you're only getting a tenth of the stream, and the rest of it's just spilling out all over the ground. That would be the corollary.
That's close, yeah. It's the electricity that's going out on the wire. The wires can't handle it. So when it tries to go back to the substation, it gets there, but it gets there very inefficiently, so a lot is wasted. Like you put out 10 cows on pasture in the morning, and when you bring them into milk, you only bring 5 back in. Well, you lost 5 cows. I mean, they didn't come home. So, as other people have talked to me, it's like, why wouldn't you want to, get the electricity back to the substation in an efficient manner?
I live in the city, and I know for a fact that we seldom hear of any of these issues that you're dealing with up north, out west, in the rural farmlands, and
in the cities, it's worse.
In the cities, it's got to be amplified 1,000 times, right?
Exactly.
Pam, we should be thanking you right now. All the listeners, all the people listening right now, you should be thanking Pam, because I got to be honest, I deal with a lot of issues. There's so many issues to deal with, I sometimes don't know which ones to address. It's just a matter of triaging. But then this electrical pollution, this is so prevalent everywhere. It's a ubiquitous issue. We all are dealing with this one. We need to thank you for bringing this attention to our attention.
And you can't see electrical pollution like you can see water pollution or air pollution. You can't taste it. You can't see it. You can feel it, because I can feel it. I walked into one bar and I said, my legs and feet started immediately tingling really bad, and I said, and they're right by a high line. And I didn't say anything, but I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what they have to deal with, and my feet and legs are tingling really bad. It's happened a couple times. But yeah, the stray voltage where, cows got sick and whatever, that was all, farmer problems. Nobody realizes that if you use electricity, you are affected. I mean, you are affected in your homes. You're affected everywhere you go. Most likely everybody lives close to a cell tower, maybe within a couple miles. But even if you don't, if you've got electricity, if you've got a smart meter on your house, if you've got, wiring that, poor wiring where, just check any utility pole. You'll see a wire being driven into the ground. Almost every pole has a wire being driven into the ground, and that's electricity that should be going out on a line back to the utilities.
Oh, I see. Right. There's a new regulation where you have to have 2 6-foot copper poles driven into the ground, and basically you're saying that excess overflow just pours right in there and sits like a little pool bathing us underneath our homes, underneath the ground. We're just like immersed in this bubble of electromagnetic frequency.
Yeah, and when you look at all the, even to the point of like spy satellites, beaming crap down from space. We are totally bathed in electromagnetic pollution that our body was never, ever meant to handle.
No, for 1 million years that human beings have been on this planet, that's an estimate, I don't know for sure, but it's just safe to say for 1 million years, it's only been within the last 100 years that we've exposed ourselves to this new problem.
And look at the diseases of modern man in the last 100 years that are now commonplace, that just did not exist to any degree.
Well,
cancer was unheard of in the early 1900s. Maybe 2 out of 100, maybe 2% of the population got cancer.
Especially
now it's over 50%.
And right, well, actually, isn't it like one out of 3 people now? You can figure 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4.
I thought it was
people.
Actually closer to 1 out of 2, but don't quote me on that.
No, it's like 2 years ago. I remember the figures were 1 out of 3, and diabetes rates are through the roof. But that's probably a different.
That's affected by electromagnetic pollution.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh my goodness!
Absolutely.
Oh no, I didn't know that. I thought
sugar regulation, blood pressure. Yeah, how many people can't regulate blood pressure?
Well, how many people, are taking statins? And it turns out that the LDL and HDL, I'm sure you're familiar with this, but I don't know, our medical doctors, all I got to do, I can say shame on you guys. If we get bullet wounds or a car accident, I got to admit, you guys are top notch. When it comes to, you're the best in the world. But when it comes to the simplest remedies of actual human health, I wish I could use expletives to describe my disgust at their ignorance and lack of education. And the way the people worship these doctors, they go to these hospitals and like, oh, doctor. Makes me angry, Pam.
It is frustrating. They're of course not taught any of this.
No.
Some of them have tried. And there are some people who are, like Dr. Mercola, who...
Dr. Mercola, yes. We tried to get him on the show, but he's a very busy man, and bless him.
So there are some out there, but doctors legally can do 2 things: diagnose from a specific set of symptoms and prescribe drugs. And if they deviate from that, they'll lose their license. In fact, there's places that monitor how many drugs doctors dispense.
And they're paid by the pharmaceutical companies to push those drugs.
And so the only nutritional advice they could give is eat calcium to ward off osteoporosis. Legally, they can't even give any other nutritional advice.
Okay, now I've listened to Dr. Mercola, and what is your opinion on this? I heard that a cow's, I'm glad you're a veterinarian because you're the person to ask for this. I heard that cow's cells are 15 times the size of human cells, and that the cow calcium that's in their milk for the baby cows is actually not able to be processed by human beings, and what we're getting is overcalcification and calcium deposits in our body. What do you say to that?
I have to be a little careful. Raw milk is great.
Oh,
you get raw milk.
Right. But wouldn't goat's milk be better for the human consumption?
There's some people who have, I drink cow's milk. There's some people who, if they do have a problem with digesting cow's milk, they do well on goat's milk.
I see. I mean, we digress a little bit from the electrical pollution topic, but it's all related because we're talking about a situation where this is our environment, this is where we live, and if our environment is unhealthy, going to the doctors for medications and drugs that only mask the symptoms don't ever address the cause. They're always looking for the cure to cancer, but never the cause of cancer. And here, do these cell phone towers, has it been confirmed that they cause cancer?
Well, there's some studies overseas that you were either 3 or 4 more times likely to die from cancer if you were within a 1/10 of a mile of a cell tower, and I am within the 1/10 of a mile of that cell tower. Those are peer-reviewed studies that have been proven that you do run a higher risk of cancer.
You know, it reminds me of a story.
And those are 2 of hundreds.
Hundreds. Yeah, we've got them here. There's one not far, and I walk by it every day, and I don't think much of it, but now when I walk by that thing, I got to think, what should we be looking for on those towers? How can we tell is there any visible way that we can tell if they've got that device or that if this thing is being controlled? Or
boy, it's not a very big device. I don't know if you could even see it. I mean, you'd almost have to call them up and ask, do you have an RF choke on that tower?
An RF choke,
not,
yeah.
Why not? But, the fixes aren't that hard. Let's look at the 3 issues that we talked about, one being the cell tower. Okay, $35 part, plus enough filters to make sure you're not throwing a bunch of trash out on the line. The smart meter. Give me back my analog meter. I'm a college graduate. Even if you're not a college graduate, you could probably look at the numbers, read it, and call it into the utilities. If they want to say they're saving money by, cutting out a job, which this country needs, to go around and read the meters. I can read my meter, and if something's really screwy, then if you have to send somebody out, you can send it out. I can read my meter and call it in. So, the simple fix for smart meters is give me my old analog meter back. The simple fix for electrical pollution and the ground currents in the ground is put up a 5th wire. Keep the electrical grid exactly the way it is. Just put up another wire to take the electricity back to the substation. Those are 3 simple, cheap, easy fixes.
When you say put up a 5th wire, we've got a hot, a ground, a neutral. What's the 4th?
Okay, well, there's phase A, B, and D. If you look out most of the lines, there's 3 wires, phase A, B, and D, phase A, B, and C behind my house, and then the neutral. And so if they just put up another neutral to handle the excess load, and in fact, the utility's own research arm published a study in 1996, not quite 20 years ago, that said a simple, easy fix to the problem.
A 5th wire.
That would also maintain the present distribution system is a 5th wire. The own utilities research arm advocated a 5th wire to get the electricity out of the ground.
So basically,
20 years ago.
All over the country, we'd have to have these things installed. I could maybe see why they're hesitant to do this, because this requires a revamping of it. But like you said, it would provide jobs, and that's what we need right now. So
to run a 5th wire, it would cost him pennies. What did Dave Stetzer say on a tape that I listened to of his? It would be 30 cents on $100 monthly utility bill it would cost, or maybe not even that much. I mean, it was such a small amount that it was pathetic.
Oh, and all of us would be glad to pay it. I mean, after listening to you today...
Yeah, because then our bills would go down a whole lot more.
The bills would go down, our health would go up, productivity would increase.
Do you know how much this country could save on health care if there was safe electricity? How much businesses spend? They spend millions upon millions. You know how much hospitals have to spend on all this really expensive equipment because of all the bad electricity and the trash on the lines for, filters and all this other stuff for like their MRIs and whatever, because all their sensitive surgical equipment, whatever, that I don't have a figure, but I mean, what businesses could save if they didn't have to do all the safeguards and spend untold millions upon millions of dollars.
Well, Pam, again, I actually feel a little bit embarrassed and ashamed that I was ignorant of this issue. Now that I see what a problem this is, I'm almost speechless when I just sit there and contemplate this new situation. I speak a lot about GMO foods, about pollution, contaminants in the water, everything from pharmaceuticals to the fluorosilicic acid. I speak about the toxic effects of sugar, aspartame. We're being bombarded, BPA in the plastics, every single, and then I didn't even think that here we have this underlying current of problems and issues that is all around us all the time, and we're dealing with it. And I wasn't even aware of this. I know a lot of my listeners, if I'm not aware, and I'm usually on top of this kind of thing, I'm sure a lot of people out there aren't aware of it. Some of these issues come in so fast and hard, we hear them and then we go, okay, well, back to our lives. We can't deal with every single issue. But this is a situation where the walls are just closing in on us further and further. We're going to find ourselves trapped. We are trapped now by the electrical pollution. Where can we go to get away from it?
People are fighting back. In the island of Kauai, in Hawaii, there is now an injunction where they cannot put smart meters on unless the people give them permission. Naperville, Illinois, has filed suit to prevent the installation of smart meters.
Oh, good job, Naperville. Good job.
Yes, one state, is it Connecticut? The Public Service Commission out there, which is a real Public Service Commission instead of the joke we have here in Wisconsin, they said that there's no energy savings and there's no advantage to smart meters. There's some work being done in Maine. I don't know if it's by the Public Service Commission up there or citizens. People are fighting back. But, gee, do you think that, there's a reason there hasn't been any awareness? I mean...
Well, the controlled media won't.
That, it's kind of planned that people don't know anything about it. On the news media feeds us exactly what they want us to hear.
Right. We don't hear about these issues. All the important issues are just being whitewashed over, and that's why we're an alternative news network here at riverwestradio.com. Breaking Down the News is an alternative media site. CNN has lost a lot of viewers, especially from the younger audience, because, look, they just don't buy the propaganda that they're shoveling out now.
Yeah, I mean, if you look on the news this morning, I mean, was there anything of any substance? I mean, it's almost a joke when Hollywood gets, front page headlines of what Lindsay Lohan did, last night, that she got in a car accident. You know what? I can't say it on radio, but I don't care.
Yeah, right. I know how you feel, right?
It's like, I really don't care. Can you talk about, the devaluation of the dollar and, whatever. I mean, that's beside the point, but I mean...
No, yeah. Well, no, we can't talk about it, because if we did, then people would understand the issues, and then collectively we would, I don't want to say rise up, because it isn't even so much of that. Speak out. Don't believe the lie. Don't put up with this. Contact your city council members. Contact your senators, congressmen, and representatives. I'll write a letter to the president. Not that that's going to matter. I can tell you right now, he's a paid and bought for and paid politician that's owned by Wall Street and the people that run him. He's just a teleprompter reader. Doesn't matter if Romney gets in there or Obama. None of these guys are going to talk about the issue you're talking about today, are they, Pam?
I'm sure not. Maybe Ron Paul would have.
Maybe, but now with this, I don't really see it happening for him now. I had hope. It's not that I was behind Ron Paul 100% on every issue, but I like that basic platform of, when it comes to issues, let the state and local governments decide. That seems like the fairest approach to any of this. Why do we have to live under federal mandates?
It's in the Constitution that that 99% of things that we're supposed to deal with should be on the state and local level. The only thing the federal government does is coin money, not print money, mind you, coin money.
Coin money.
Not print. And defense. Pretty much everything else should be under state control. It's in the Constitution.
I agree with you. How else could it be? Otherwise, we have a centralized government, and we know historically there are problems whenever you centralize your government. The Medici family in Italy, they actually came up with the term offices. The whole form of government that we have, the offices. What it turned out, I forgot the French guy that basically took over the Italian families of the Medicis, and this guy was his policies were so unpopular that he feared being assassinated constantly. So he figured out, probably had some help, if I centralize all these bureaus and agencies into one fortified complex, I'll be safe and I can still run this thing. I mean, that's basically how it started in its modern form, and that's what we have today.
But
yeah, I know. Pam, I don't know how much time you have left to give us today, but if we don't, I would definitely love to have you back. I know there's other people out there fighting this issue. If we have anybody in town here, please contact us. You can contact me at breakingdownthenews@gmail.com. Breaking Down the News is also can be found on Facebook. Please write in. Let us know. If you're simpatico with Pam's issue, as many people are, let's get on board. Let's dialogue, network, communicate, whatever we got to do here to increase. There's so many issues to put out nowadays. In fact, we're going to be doing a website just for these news issues, and hopefully it'll help. It'll coalesce all this information and allow viewers to go through issue after. I know you know about GMO foods out there.
Oh, horrible.
Just Franken foods. It's just utterly just. But I don't want to get off topic here, but definitely we need to have you back. We need to follow up on how this is going. What chances are there that they're at this point actually going to put that $35 part on your tower?
Well, July 1st is the deadline. Today's the 21st.
The deadline for what?
That they have to submit to the city of Owen proof that they're in compliance with Public Service Commission, 113.701 to 705, and IEEE, which is Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, Code 519. They have till July 1st, and I'm not really seeing any.
So what happens if they don't comply? I mean, we can't arrest them.
The fine is $1,000. The ordinance has it written down that the fine is $1,000 a day.
$1,000 a day. Let's see if they can shell out $11 million, and $1 million is 1,000,000. Boy, they can go about
3 years,
40 years with that fine. They're like, oh, your $1,000 fine. You know what? Maybe we need to change the law. $1 million a day.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You got to hurt these guys in the pocketbooks, otherwise they just laugh at you.
I figure $1,000 a day after 100 days, that's 100,000. You would start to maybe think about it. I actually thought the one at the school would blink first. That they would care, but
would the school system have to pay for that, or
no? The cell tower people,
the cell tower owners would have to pay.
Right.
Oh, well, yeah. What about the liability issues of all those kids at the school? I mean, it's affecting their health. I mean, maybe they should get $11 million each.
There was one school. This is on the electricalpollution.com website, which is a very good website, electricalpollution.com. There was a school district that Dave Stetzer worked with Melrose Medora to clean up the electrical pollution problem in that school. There were 34 kids on inhalers for asthma.
34.
After the electrical pollution problem got cleaned up, there was a total of 1 kid.
Well, okay, now that's what's the new phrase I just came up with? I'm sorry, I didn't come up with it. I ran across it. Causation is not necessarily correlation. As if to say that you're saying, oh, just because 34 went down to 1 kid on an asthma device, what do you call those little respirators?
Inhalers.
Thank you. Let's see, that's 33 kids that no longer need an inhaler, and our government officials or the people that own these companies like to throw out the phrase, well, causation is not necessarily a correlation. Like, what are you talking about? That's pretty evident to me. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to understand that there's definitely a correlation there.
Yeah.
And that website is electricalpollution.com. Who's running that one? I want to give some props to those people too.
Catherine Kleiber.
Okay.
I hope I can say her name on the air. I'm sure that's not a problem. She's been webmaster of that website for almost 20 years. 20
years she's been battling this issue?
Yes. That's what I mean. People have been in the trenches for a long time. I mean, I'm a newcomer. I've only been in the trenches for about 3 years. Well, about 4, 3 to 4. Yeah, people have been battling it for almost over 20.
Well, look, our news media isn't telling us. That's why we need to abandon them. We need to abandon the politicians. Get them out of there. The guys that don't seem to. I mean, look, if I'm just learning about this particular issue, and I am, I got to tell you, folks, I really am a little embarrassed because I was not aware of this one. And as a decent human being, you know what my first reaction is? Well, I need to get more informed. I need to educate myself. I need to look into these studies and find out the data that proves conclusively the points and the damages that Pam is saying today. Everything from reducing cow milk production to producing cancer, affecting sleep disorders. My instinct is get informed, get involved, get behind these people. If you don't have time, I understand we're all working really hard, but really, how can you go about your day thinking, it's a beautiful day here in Milwaukee, actually, and I'm looking at these big white fluffy clouds, and it makes me think, oh, I should really be concerned about this stuff. But how can we really, in all earnestness, not be concerned? How can we just go about our lives as if nothing is wrong anymore when everything from every angle seems to be messed up?
Yeah, and so much of this stuff obviously is done under the radar. I don't know if that's a pun intended or not, but And certainly there's been, an obvious news blackout on the whole situation.
On this issue, on so many issues, I don't even want to digress further because I could go on and on. That's what the news show here is about, actually, breaking down the news. The headlines that should have been on the front pages but weren't.
Yep.
And definitely, Pam, you've made our front page today. We're going to stick this right up there, especially as soon as we get that website up. It'll be breakingdownthenews.com. It's coming soon. And articles like Pam and Catherine with her 20-year cause. I just want to thank her. Thank you, anybody that's taken up these causes and have been in the trenches for a while. We owe you guys a cup of coffee and a pat on the back, to say the least. To say the least, because when we're sitting here, all we can do is drink beer, watch football and baseball and basketball, go to the lake and enjoy our lives while what? Other people are taking up these issues? Pam, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for bringing this issue. This is something that now I can warn my friends and family, and I will, because they need to check how close are these smart meters to your home. Are you sleeping next to this thing? Is it down by your, God forbid, next to your child's nursery crib? Could you imagine that? And you're bombarding these poor, I can't even think about it. It just disgusts me, actually. Now that something's got to be done. Something's got to be done immediately. We will follow up on this issue. Pam, we're going to cut the show because we got to go on to other things. Fortunately, we have a long show today on Friday here, so thank you so much. Will you follow up with us in the future? Will you come back on the show?
Sure.
Pamela Jafke, everyone, veterinarian out in Clark County. She's almost single-handedly, her and electricalpollution.com and Catherine out there, they're fighting this cause. They're promoting an awareness of this thing. We need to get behind them. I always say, look, if you want to help and you can't do anything, send money if you got money. These people could use it as advocacy for their cause. It costs money to contact people, follow up on this thing. You want to throw your money somewhere, throw it their way. I'm sure you don't have a problem with that, Pam. I'm not saying that you need money or anything like that, but geez, couldn't you print out more flyers? Couldn't you buy airtime, advertising, whatever help you could get?
Everything right? I've done, I know Catherine's done it too. We've done it on our own dime. I paid the lawyer to write the ordinance for the city. I paid his bill. It's something that's important enough to me.
And that's what it's going to take, people actually doing it themselves. We cannot wait for our leaders who have betrayed us. They're not there representing us. And I say no taxation without representation. We're not getting represented. We're not getting represented. Pam, thank you again. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you as soon as we can, and I'm going to follow up off air with you and just stay abreast of your situation out there and bring the people here, not just in Milwaukee, but worldwide. We are a worldwide broadcast. People listen to the show a lot on the archives, where we don't always have that big of an audience on the live listening hour. But when they get home and they're doing their dishes or they're riding in their cars, they podcast it, they do listen, and we do promote it. So your cause will be heard, Pam. It will be heard.
Okay, and this is a worldwide problem, obviously.
Yeah, anywhere.
And there's so many countries that are so far ahead of us. One of the Dave Stetzer has worked a lot with one of the, and I can't pronounce it. It's not the Ukraine, but one of the republics that was part of the Soviet Union. They recognize electrical, radio wave sickness as a diagnosis.
A diagnosis.
They recognize it as a diagnosis.
They'll call anything a disease these days except for the actual things that are a problem.
Well, they recognize it as a true diagnosis.
You can't take a pill to solve this issue. Ingesting pills will not stop the EMF frequency pollution that you're experiencing and getting bombarded with. All right. Well, again, thank you, Pam. We're going to have to drop the line here and get moving, but we'll talk to you as soon as possible, and I'll follow up off air with email correspondence and phone calls.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, audience, this is Pamela Jafke. She's out there in Clark County. Please, is there any contact information? Do you need people to contact you for support or maybe an email? Anything?
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes I get 300 emails a day.
Do you? Oh, that's good to hear, actually.
And I can get overwhelmed. Well, I guess I don't mind giving out my phone number. It's in the phone book, so
okay.
It's public knowledge. It's 715-229-4195.
And it's Pamela Jafke, veterinarian. Thank you, ma'am. I hope people will help you. We will spread the word. We will spread the word.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome for your time, and we'll be right back. Got more news. It never stops here at Breaking Down the News. It just never stops until, I don't know, we're not going to fix all these problems, but we're going to give it a try. Pam, take care. Have a good day, ma'am.
You bet. Bye-bye.
You're listening to RiverWestRadio.com.
All over the world and hear commercials like this one with soft music and a soothing announcer's voice telling you how great some big corporation's new technology will help you and your family. But it is important to remember these companies could give a flying f*** about you or your family. That's why Breaking Down the News has made this commercial to counter their commercials. Don't be fooled by them. The battle is to gain control of your mind through media propaganda. Just say no to evil corporations and their slick computer graphics designed to brainwash viewers. Vote no with your dollars, and we will regain the health of our nation, one consumer at a time.
And now, live from River West Radio, the man with words worth listening to, your host, Michael Wordsworth.
We are so back. That was really an incredible interview with Pam. Thank you, Pam, for doing that. Moving on with the news, we're going to cut over to Turkey. So much is going on everywhere, all over the world. That's why we're breaking it down for you. CIA spies in Turkey secretly helped armed gangs in Syria. That's right. CIA spies in Turkey, which Turkey used to be called Anatolia. I don't know how many of you remember that, but CIA spies in Turkey secretly helped armed gangs in Syria. This article from Islam invitationturkey.com. I'm sorry. Let me get this. Islam, IC invitationturkey.com. There we go. Islam, IC invitationturkey.com. Just say that 3 times fast. All right. This article from them on June 21st, 2012. The CIA agents in southern Turkey are secretly helping the armed groups fighting against the Damascus government in Syria, a report says. According to a New York Times report published on Thursday, some U.S. and Arab intelligence officials say a group of CIA officers are operating secretly in southern Turkey, and that the agents are helping the anti-Syria governments decide which gangs inside the Arab country will, quote, receive arms to fight the Syrian government. Said one of the Arab officials, whose name was not mentioned in the report, quote, CIA officers are there and they are trying to make new sources and recruit people, end quote. The arms include automatic rifles, rocket-propelled grenades, ammunition, and anti-tank weapons, which are being transported mostly across the Turkish border, the report also said. Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar pay for the transport of the weaponry into Syria, according to the U.S. and Arab intelligence officials cited in the report. The CIA spies have been in southern Turkey for the past several weeks, and Washington is also considering providing the armed gangs with, quote, satellite imagery and other detailed intelligence on Syrian troop locations and movements, the report also adds. The Thursday New York Times report comes down 2 days after the Syrian foreign minister said in a statement that the government was trying to evacuate civilians from the western city of Homs. Said the statement issued on June 19th, quote, contacts have been made with the leadership of the international monitors in cooperation with the local Syrian authorities in the city of Homs to bring out these Syrian citizens. But the efforts of the monitors were unsuccessful because the armed terrorist groups obstructed their efforts, end quote. Meanwhile, the Syrian ambassador to the UN, Bashar Ja'afari, apologize, Mr. Ja'afari, told reporters in New York on June 19th that armed groups in Syria were violating the peace plan brokered by the UN Arab League envoy, Kofi Annan, and that the only way to push forward is to guarantee the success of the Sixth Joint Plan. In addition, the head of the UN Observer Mission in Syria, Major General Robert Mood, said in a briefing to the UN Security Council on June 19th that the UN monitors were morally obliged to stay in Syria despite a recent decision to suspend the activities of the team. On June 16th, Mood said the UN monitoring team was, quote, suspending its activities, end quote, in Syria due to an intensification of armed violence. Over the past weeks, the anti-Syria Western governments have been calling for the overthrow of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. However, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on June 20th, no one is entitled to decide for other nations who should be in power and who should not. A change of power, if it occurs, and it could only occur by constitutional means, should result in peace and stop the bloodshed, the president said. Isn't that the Russian president said? Isn't that interesting that we have to get lectured by the Russian president on what is fair? A change of power, if it occurs, and it could only occur by constitutional means. I mean, even the Russian president understands the significance of a constitution and why countries need them. That's just embarrassing. He made the remarks in a press conference in Los Cabos, Mexico after the G20 summit. My goodness. This article from The Independent, continuing on with Syria. Syria's in the news a lot lately. It's just we got to cover it. It's just the next latest target that our country has picked with their wonderful foreign policy to attack. If you notice, there's a trend going on. We did Afghanistan, Iraq. Then we did basically Egypt, Libya. Now we're over to Syria. I believe Yemen and Lebanon's next, and the last one to fall will be Saudi Arabia. But as I understand it, inside sources say our insane leaders are going to be directing our military powers towards the eventual decimation of the entire Middle East. I mean, I could go on why it's happening, but it's just important for you to understand that this is an agenda. It's already been decided. I mean, that's the part that should make you feel kind of creepy. It's an eerie situation when the fate of the world has already been decided. Just thinking about that, just kind of, we're not just haphazardly progressing on this planet in a natural human manner. There's an agenda. If you didn't know that, well, I'm sorry I had to tell you that, but the agenda is something. We have minor choices. The significant choices, the significant levers of industry, trade, economics have been removed from our hands as a middle class, as the public. I mean, the middle class, they're the ones that by and large participate the most in the democratic republic we have. I'm not saying that poor people aren't active. It's just the majority of low-income people really, and for those of you that do care, please, I mean no offense, been poor myself, but the point is that there tends to be this huge underclass that doesn't care. No matter what you tell them, either they lack the intelligence, they lack the will. But the part that gets me is when it's not even so much a matter of intelligence or will. It's when low-income demographics are so easily swayed with the materialism in this country. The shiny, sparkly objects that go flittering by us on the television, on the street corner, in the shopping malls. They the least understand that we live in a fabricated, artificial reality. It's an artificial culture. And the actual culture that we develop is subverted, taken over, co-opted. And then it no longer becomes ours. It's not an original, spontaneous movement. It's directed and guided. You should look up names like Edward Bernays, B-E-R-N-A-Y-S. Edward Bernays, he was the nephew of Sigmund Freud. He kind of made his uncle famous and popular because Edward Bernays was a man he developed modern propaganda. But he realized in his findings that as he understood the psychology of people as a whole, as a society, and the levers that move and control the mindless masses, if I could say, he understood that you can manipulate them directly, and that's what propaganda is, and that's why it became radio commercials, TV commercials, advertising. But initially they hired Edward Bernays to change public opinion. And there's a wonderful YouTube documentary from the BBC. It's like 4 hours long, but basically it goes on to explain that this science that he pioneered has come a long way. In fact, Ronald Reagan, his campaign commission used this information of crowd psychology and manipulation through propaganda to actually get him elected by doing a psychological analysis and profiling peoples that would potentially be targeted later to obtain the votes he needed. I guess that's a good way to put it. Tony Blair later used it to sway the Labour Party in the UK and get elected. So it's not that these guys so much get elected. It's a democratic republic. We have an electoral system, and initially I was against that, but now I kind of can see a point of why you need delegates. I'm not sure giving everybody a vote would matter, especially if you're among those who are not informed. Why should you have a vote? That's a good thing. I mean, say, for instance, we all had to get together on some farmland, and we had to build housing and barns, and we're just going to vote. And that's much of the parallel I'm making, is that running a country and developing a society and a civilization and a positive, peaceful, forward, harmonious progression requires planning and knowledge And we should select from the best and brightest among us to do this. And those who just simply are willing to take up the task. Many aren't. So imagine if we all got together on farmland to build a communal village of sorts, and we're going to build barns and structures that are going to house people and start industry and trade and farming. And we just put it to a vote, but let's say 60% of the people didn't have any clue as to how to build a barn. And they voted, well, we're just going to build it this way and that way. And, well, I hope you see my point here is that what a good way to explain it, here's what I'm trying to say. A camel, it has been said, is a horse designed by a committee. A committee of people that attempt to get together and build a horse end up with a camel, and the parallel there is that the camel's got the funny hump, and it looks like an ugly horse. It looks like who designed this thing. So that's what our new form of government and our new form of civilization would be, an ugly horse, because if we just let anybody and everybody vote, what they're going to do is listen to those that think they know what they're saying and are experts in their fields, but because any one of us would be uninformed, we wouldn't be qualified to verify if that person is qualified to lead us in any given endeavor. That's why we instinctively, as a society, put experts in place, but now we've become too dependent on those experts. We're not staying informed enough to know if the experts are lying anymore. It's just a culture of worshiping the experts, worshiping the doctors. Good example there. Doctors, they're good at trauma medicine, but they absolutely bite when it comes to diagnosing causes of health ailments. They don't look at the basis of, they don't warn you that, well, you got BT toxins in your food, you've got BPA in your plastic, you've got fluoridation in the water, you're eating GMO foods, you have an extreme high diet of high fructose corn syrup. We're a nation of sugar addicts, which has been proven to be toxic now. High fructose corn syrup dulls our senses and lowers our IQs. We're not getting enough fatty acids like omega-3s to counteract that process. In fact, there's no nutrition in our soil anymore. It's amazing we are walking around at all. There you go. It's amazing that civilization is progressing at all. I mean, you got to kind of give it props, actually, because looking out the window right here, it's everything seems orderly, seems to be functioning, but you have to look beneath the surface at what's going on, and that's the area that some people are not good at doing. So, fortunately, there are people that care and will bring you this information, but you have to care enough to listen. You don't have to worship the people doing it. In fact, give up this whole worship thing altogether. I know what the hell is this thing is with celebrities and movie stars and anybody in the spotlight. I mean, let's just face it. Rather than speaking for you, the audience, I'll just put it plainly. Look, I'm insignificant. By and large, I mean, compared to 7 billion people in this world, my significance doesn't extend far past my family and friends, my neighborhood and community. That being the case, there's really nothing special about me. Yeah, in any case. Sorry, you know what? I apologize. I didn't even mean to get on about me. Let's just keep on with the news here. Sometimes I go on these rants, and sometimes they're good, and they lead us in positive directions, and other times I realize that this conversation goes on for hours and hours. It really doesn't end. I'm attempting to convey an idea to the public or the listening audience out there that's very elaborate, very complicated, and it really can't be done just by... It has to be organized and delivered in a nice format. So that's what I do for you here at Breaking Down the News. This is the format of the show. You got news read with the announcer voice and then interjected with my comments and sometimes comedy. Commercials that are actually anti-commercial. Wonderful interviews from people that aren't getting their voices heard. That's what we're, a lot of people, the celebrities out there, they get heard. And what we need to do is listen to the ordinary, insignificant people. That's, I guess, the point I was trying to make, that we should listen to those who aren't getting heard, because there are so many amazing stories. Actually, up in northern Wisconsin, western Wisconsin, any farmland in Wisconsin, they have so many contentions with government policy and big corporations like Monsanto, and just how, if you ask a dairy farmer, he'll tell you, I can't survive by growing anything other than GM crops to feed my cattle and cows. And you try to explain to them, well, look, there is a market for it. I only buy grass-fed beef, organic beef, and somehow local farmers manage to pull it off. But I guess when it comes to milk production, that's not the case. But then I have to ask myself, well, is it because the consumer market doesn't demand it? I mean, there's only so many organic buyers here, just for example, in Milwaukee. So how many dairy farmers can actually have their businesses supported by the demand that we have here? I mean, that would be my question. And if that's the case, well, we've already got some really good. You've got Sassy Cow. I wish I could remember Yuppie Hill Eggs. I wish I could remember some of the other dairy brands. I don't like the organic owned family brand. It's usually what do they call that brand? Family owned organic. It's kind of deceptive, because what I've heard is that they pretty much take anybody and everybody, and there's not enough watchdogs to make sure that these products are truly organic, or chickens are actually range fed or not housed. So you can only house a certain number of them on an acre of land, and you have to give them outdoor time, and to feed them natural feed that's not GMO. These are things that, I guess what we do is we found a few local producers here that we can trust, and we support them. We vote with our dollars. Like the commercial I made earlier was saying, you got to vote with your dollars. You got to point in the direction. And I guess that's the point I was trying to make about 2 minutes ago, is that as a society, we need to vote with our dollars and start buying up more consumer items, local farmers, people we can trust, know those brands, and grow healthy from it. Everybody wins. It's a win-win situation. If you knew how bad the meat industry is, how bad the dairy industry is, I'm not talking about the organic farmers. I'm talking about the spraying meats with ammonium. I mean, it's not just the pink slime. That freaking lunch meat from Oscar Mayer gets sprayed all the time with ammonia, and it's just like you cannot trust any pre-packaged meat from a big corporate brand. It's just the way it is. You cannot trust them. And what else? The eggs. I mean, if you compare an organic egg to a normal commercial egg where they got the chickens like penned up right next to each other, never see the light of day, pumped up with hormones and antibiotics that go into you. I mean, think about that one. How many antibiotics from chickens can you take and cows can you take? And don't think it's just the meat. The meat's not the only problem. The vegetables, the non-organic vegetables are definitely out of the question. But I read an article once, I believe it was in Natural News, where 30% of organic vegetables contain perchlorate. Perchlorate, if I'm not mistaken, is a rocket fuel substance. Again, the point being, without being a scientist, you don't need to know every last detail. At least I don't. You tell me something that makes enough sense and I can verify those facts to the extent that I can comprehend them, I'm sold. I mean, I'm not going to believe everything that's said. You can't. You cannot just... And what you need to do is start becoming an independent thinker. What is an independent thinker? Independent thinkers don't walk around parroting the information that they got off their TV celebrities or mainstream media talk news or news broadcasts like CNN, MSNBC. All that material is just propaganda. To be an independent thinker, one must be able to contemplate. One must be able to discern. Those are two big tools right there. And if you don't know what contemplation or discernment is, okay, right now you need to go pick up a dictionary. I'm serious. Turn me off. Get off the air. Go pick up a dictionary and read. that will help. I'm not trying to be mean here, but some people, I wish I could be kind of fatherly to them in a stern yet compassionate way, identify and say, look, this is the direction you need to go. I would appreciate that from my elders, my mentors, those with greater wisdom and knowledge than I welcome that. Believe me, when you don't have a sensei, life ain't easy. When you're trying to, say for instance, you're trying to make up your own martial arts, good luck. It's nice to have a sensei, but the parallel being here that eventually you have to incorporate that knowledge and own it, and then it becomes yours, in which case it's kind of your own style now. And that's what I mean by being an independent thinker. I mean, look, I read a lot of people's materials, and you could say the same thing. I'm just parodying what I'm hearing from somebody else. And yet, I can give you reason after reason why I listen to, say, for instance, Max Kaiser, who financial reports. Great guy. I used a lot of his information to put together the Henry Kissinger satire episode. In fact, if you've not heard the Henry Kissinger episode, I should play it right now. Actually, it's pretty good. Anyhow, I used one of Max Kaiser's interviews, and I took the information he put out, and came up with Henry Kissinger has been making the news lately, so we have to pick on him. And I call him Henry, the bloodstains won't come off my hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger, and that title is appropriate. He is a war criminal. So tell you what, without delay, let's play that interview just because we need some comedy here. That's always helpful. The news I read is, frankly, it's depressing, and I'd apologize, except it isn't my fault. I'd like to, you know what? I am going to be reporting on good news. You know what the good news is? There's millions of activists in the world that are not getting their voices heard. My goal is to seek them out, find them, and interview them, get them up. We're going to be developing a news website on the web that correlates to breaking down the news and put their stories on there. So that's the good news. The good news is there are more people out there that care about these issues than you would think. The problem is there's so many issues, so the way the people are dealing with it, each person is becoming a little mini expert in their own area of expertise. Guess that was redundant. And they're becoming an expert in their own area of expertise. And this is good because I don't know how much brain power you have, but I only have so much RAM memory to deal with. It helps when things go into long-term memory, then I can draw them. But my short-term memory only has so much. There's so many experts, so many fields, so many angles, so many wars, so many bioweapons, so many calamities, bird flus, avian flus, GMO, BT, vaccination issues, debates, historical accounts. Wow, like where do you really sort? Hey, we just keep it on. So look. Let's get Henry Kissinger on the line. We have Henry Kissinger waiting on the line right now, and we're going to talk to him. This is a special Breaking Down the News celebrity call-in segment where we have known political figures call in and conduct an interview. Today's guest, he was once the National Security Advisor under Nixon during the Vietnam War era, and later Secretary of State. He's probably the most prominent, unindicted war criminal roaming around today. I'd like to bring onto the show Mr. The Bloodstains Won't Come Off My Hands no matter how hard I scrub them, Kissinger. Welcome to the show, you evil, bloodthirsty monster.
Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for having me on your show.
Now, you've managed to really piss off a lot of people during your long career as a warmonger hiding in sheep's clothing.
I have. I really have. If I had a conscience, this would really bother me. The illegal, we do immediately. The unconstitutional takes a little longer.
I'm not sure what the hell that means, but you were once a big man in foreign affairs throughout the world, and I bet it's hard to get on anyone's show these days, since people have been rightfully charging you as a war criminal.
The nice thing about being a celebrity is that if you bore people, they think it's your fault. Actually, I make a few public appearances now and then. I was recently honored at the conference on Indochina.
What?
I know, it is ironic, isn't it?
Wait. Let me get this straight. You, the man who, along with Richard Holbrooke, was part of the team in the Nixon White House, helping to craft the Vietnam policy, including Operation Phoenix, which saw the assassination of South Vietnamese political and religious leaders. You are attending this conference.
A country that demands moral perfection in its foreign policy will achieve neither perfection nor security.
But you, Mr. The bloodstains won't come off my hands no matter how hard I scrub and Kissinger authorized the war to move over into Cambodia. The terrible consequence was the eventual rise of Pol Pot and the Cambodian killing fields, and now they invite you to a conference on Indochina hosted by Hillary Clinton?
Imagine my chagrin. Hillary Clinton had to introduce me, which wasn't easy, given her rude comments about me prior to the conference.
Oh, come on. She was just probably covering her own thirst. You know she worships at the same altar of death that you do.
Perhaps, but it was ironic that she had to introduce me.
Now, in recent years, Mr. Bloodstains will come off my hands no matter how hard I've scrubbed and Kissinger. You've come under fire for private comments once made to Nixon during the Bangladesh-Pakistani war, in which he described the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi as a, quote, bitch and a witch.
I regret that now.
What, saying that?
No, getting caught saying that. I regret that now.
He also said the Indians are bastards shortly before the war.
I did. What are you going to do, you know?
It's kind of surreal with the coup attempt in Ecuador that this harkens back to your policies in Latin America, which saw the overthrow and murder of Salvador Allende in Chile, and the prompting of Operation Condor in the Plan Mercurio, which oversaw the kidnapping of people in Latin American countries. Leftist activists, these people were disappeared under Operation Condor, and now we have Hillary Clinton praising you for this evil well done.
It's not a matter of what is true that counts, but a matter of what is perceived to be true.
Do you see a parallel between Vietnam and Afghanistan today?
The war profits must flow unabated. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
I can't believe you just said that.
Well, I said it before, and I will say it again. Here, I will say it again right now. Military men are just dumb, stupid animals to be used as pawns in foreign policy.
Mr. Kissinger, you are indeed a madman. It is hard to believe that you played such a pivotal role in our country's foreign policy for decades, and that is all the time I will lend to your madness. You're out of here.
It was a pleasure being on your show, Michael. Good day.
And good riddance. I'm Michael Wordsworth, having just interviewed Henry the Bloodstains won't come off my hands no matter how I would scrub him, Kissinger. Back in a moment. All opinions and quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. And we're back. I hope you found that interesting, or at least provided some comic relief. Here we go. We're going to head back into some more news, so stay tuned, strap your seatbelts on. The news is amazing. Pelosi says Holder contempt charge about suppressing the vote. This article from Kurt Nemo. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi went on the defensive Thursday. She said a contempt vote by Republicans against Attorney General Eric Holder is an effort to block votes in the upcoming election. Pelosi characterized the proceeding as a shameful display of abuse of power by House Republicans and said it was no mistake Eric Holder is the government official in charge of preventing voter suppression. Wow. Democrats argue that states that have enacted more rigorous voter ID requirements are attempting to prevent minorities from voting. We're attempting to prevent illegal aliens from flooding over our borders and getting the right to vote and voting all these insane Democrats in. We don't want insane Republicans either, but actually we just don't want insanity on either side. Anyhow, back to the article. On Wednesday, the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee voted to hold Holder. Isn't that? Yeah. Why do they do that to me? The Reform Committee voted to hold Holder in contempt for not supplying documents related to the Fast and Furious investigation. Holder and the government initially claimed guns were not transferred to Mexico. Big liar. But later admitted they had, because he were lying, which prompted the committee to request more documents. You don't think? I'm surprised Eric Holder is getting any flack over this. He must be their fall guy, though. I mean, what else could it be? Bush ran a similar gun-running situation in 2006. I don't think it was called Fast and Furious. It had some other stupid name that appeals to the steroid-using, tattoo, devil-worshipping people that are attracted to this kind of... Sorry. The covert operation provided Mexican drug cartels with a number of weapons. Talk about Fast and Furious here. In December, it was revealed that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives discussed using the operation to argue for new laws restricting gun sales and attack the Second Amendment. It was an attack on the Second Amendment. It really, I know some might find that hard to believe, but it really was. Here's a quote from Pelosi. Let me see. Pelosi, okay, I don't know if I can do Pelosi. No, I can't impersonate Pelosi. Oh, that's terrible. I wish I could. It should be like, these very same people who are holding... No, I can't do it. All right, I'll just read the quote, okay. These very same people who are holding him in contempt are part of a nationwide scheme to suppress the vote. Let me get this straight, Pelosi. You're saying that the people holding Eric Holder in contempt are part of a nationwide scheme to suppress the vote? In other words, we need to agree with gun running to Mexican drug cartels in an illegal covert operation that has ended up in the death of several of our law enforcement officers, and you're saying that this is a conspiracy? She's a conspiracy. See, Pelosi is a conspiracy theorist. That this is a nationwide scheme to suppress the vote. You're insane, woman. The people that follow you and listen to you are ignorant buffoons that are insane as well. We condemn you, Miss Pelosi. Boo, boo. Republicans took Pelosi to task for her comments. Yeah, which Republicans? We'll find out. Here, Representative Darrell East's spokesman Frederick R. Hill said, for Minority Leader Pelosi to dismiss this tragedy and say the investigation is really about voter suppression is offensive and wrong. Offensive and wrong? I know it's hard to come up with things, but did your PR guy write that? Because it's not just... Yeah, okay, it's offensive, but it's completely insane. To say that it's wrong is even an understatement. It's just subverting the issue to another issue. What do they call it, a straw man? Well, House Speaker John Boehner replied, a Republican from Ohio, if you don't know John Boehner, the House Speaker, he said, the American people deserve the truth on what happened in Fast and Furious. You know, coming from John Boehner, this guy's got so much corruption, so much evil doing in so many other areas. I can't help but think that he's like, this is an indication that Eric Holder is in trouble. They're going to let him fall for this because if you got Boehner up there saying the American people deserve the truth, Boehner doesn't care if you get the truth or not. Anyhow, President Obama claimed executive privilege on Wednesday. Oh, I got to read that article. I've got that around here too. Yep, I found it. Okay, I'm going to read that right after this. President Obama claimed executive privilege on Wednesday and refused to turn over additional documents to the committee. You dictator bastard. That is such a... You're the president. You swore an oath to the same Constitution of the United States that our military and police officers swore an oath to. You can't cover up this stuff. What are you trying to do? Cover up... You know, we should pull in George Bush, too, because he did his thing. Oh, I'd love to see that. George Bush on war crimes. They tried to arrest him in Switzerland. You can't go there anymore. Can you imagine that? You're the president of the United States. You can't go to X. You can't go to Switzerland anymore because they think you're a war criminal, and they're right. The Justice Department has so far handed over 7,600 documents. Well, that's a lot. I mean, it'd take us a while to read those. A small percentage of more than 130,000 documents not disclosed. Oh my, you know, here I thought 7,600 was a big number, but 130,000 documents not disclosed. How many documents do they have? You know, when you do an illegal covert operation, like running guns down to Mexico in exchange for drugs. Oh yeah, it was kind of an Iran-Contra thing all over again. That's why this is Obama's Watergate moment here. And they've got 130,000 documents on it. I mean, we are such a bureaucratic nation. We can't even do illegal secret stuff without documenting it in triplicate. I mean, if you don't want to get caught, don't do that. There's that Freedom of Information Act, that little thing there. So we got the 7,600 documents. Those probably don't say anything. Maybe 2 of those in the whole thing have something incriminating. Somebody's got to go through all 7,600 to figure it out. You know, how would you like that job? Can you imagine there's actually people out there in order to fight the tyranny that's trying to take us over and keep the corruption at a minimum, which is completely rampant and out of control in the government. But for those watchdogs out here, the people, somebody actually has to physically go through and read these things. 7,600 documents. Oh man, this is like, okay, let's go on to the article about Obama, because I said I would, and I will. Obama asserts executive privilege to hide involvement in Fast and Furious. Oh man, Cheney had a lot of executive privileges. Bush ran him up. He used them all the time. For those of you that don't know, an executive privilege is a euphemism. Big word. Sorry, can't use a euphemism. Executive privilege is another way of saying I don't need to adhere to laws that typically would bind me. An executive privilege is usually pulled out. It's a trump card played by a president in times of war. But we've been in a state of war, a state of emergency since I can't even remember, decades now. That's what allows... You see, the government's broken up into 3 branches for a reason. It's called checks and balances. It's so that no one tyrant or group, even oligarchy, could ever gain complete control of it. And you know what? For all its faults, it's worked by and large so far, except that the corrupt, evil overlords of the planet have figured out how to use the system against us. And mainly, it's easy to do when we don't pay attention. We've been bred to not pay attention, but they pay attention because it's their business. They think it's worthwhile because the policies that we make in our government affect their business. I digress. The article is Obama asserts executive privilege to hide involvement in Fast and Furious. This article from Suzanne Posel, Posel, P-O-S-E-L. Apologize, Suzanne, because thank you for covering this. and she writes for Infowars.com. In a vain effort to cover his tracks and protect his cohorts, President Barack Obama is claiming executive privilege regarding Fast and Furious, documents that expose their operation to smuggle weapons into Mexico by way of U.S. agents that were handed off directly to Mexican drug cartels. I'm laughing because just reading that, just our government's great idea was to, here's what we need to do with all the problems in the world and all the violence on the borders. These Mexican drug cartels don't have enough weapons. We need to send them in there under the guise that we're going to track them. But you know what? When they sent them in there were no tracking devices on the weapons. So how are they going to track them? You know how they tracked them? When they came up in murders of cartel members and our own law enforcement officials being killed by them. That's what they call tracking them. I mean, it was like 20,000 guns at least. I forgot the total number. Assault rifles. I mean, what could be more insane? And then after doing that, to turn around and blame the Second Amendment on this illegal operation that was conducted covertly by and here, Attorney Eric Holder, he's being held in contempt. I don't think other guys below him are like, look, we ain't taking the fall for this. You told us this. And he did. We got him on videotape saying, I don't know nothing about it. Janet Reno, I don't know. They get real stupid as soon as they get in front of a Senate committee hearing. I mean, if they're talking about how to make communism prolific in America and take us over, boy, then they're just little gabby, parroting, chirping birds, aren't they? Second you get in there, so have you heard of Operation Fast and Furious? I did not know. I'd have to think. What'd you call it? Yep, that's the typical reaction when you get these little... It's fun to watch them squirm, too. Just kind of like, busted. How does it feel? You corrupt little... No, it's not even... The word corrupt is almost like... A lot of people think like, well, of course it's corrupt. Why wouldn't it be? You don't understand. Corruption is like a cancer. It's not like a cold. You don't get it and it goes away. It's more like a cancer. It gets in the corporate body, it gets in the governing body, and it starts to eat away at the moral fabric and infrastructure that supports good, decent people until one day you wake up and all the decent people are imprisoned in FEMA camps, detention centers, radio announcers and news broadcasters, their First Amendment rights stripped from them. Your Second Amendment gun rights, you can't have guns. Suddenly that's illegal. And your Fourth Amendment rights to illegal search and seizure, it's completely violated. I mean, you have a right. Anyhow, let me continue with this article because it's good stuff here. Just as the Oversight Committee's votes on holding Holder in contempt or not, here you go again, holding Holder in contempt or not, Obama claims a thinly veiled retreat, perhaps to mitigate his exposed connection to the DOJ's involvement in the ruined operation. Holder had attempted to subvert responsibility by offering to negotiate with Congress, yet Representative Issa refused. Good job, good job. Moving forward with a motion for contempt of Congress, Issa asserts the committee has uncovered serious wrongdoing by the Justice Department. That's almost an oxymoron, isn't it? It's like, I thought they're the Justice Department. They're not supposed to do injustice. Sorry, I don't want to wreck Issa's big moment here because it's good. Issa asserts the committee has uncovered serious wrongdoing by the Justice Department. That wrongdoing has cost lives on both sides of the border. James Cole, Deputy Attorney General for the Department of Justice, wrote a letter to Issa acknowledging Holder's failure to comply with the committee's subpoena of October 11, 2011. Oh, that's right. He was back in 2011, October 11th, actually. They were subpoenaing him to comply, and it's been just now that they have. Ooh, they know they are so busted, aren't they? Suckers. Somebody... See, Eric Holder isn't behind this. Just like Barack Obama is just a teleprompter reading fool. And if Mitt Romney gets in there, he's going to do the same thing. They don't run anything. All they do is collect the mindless masses into two divisions, Democrat and Republican, and offer just the same brand of the same BS. Many of us know that now. Thank goodness. Anyhow, how does he respond to the subpoena? However, they claim they have made an extraordinary effort to accommodate the committee's legitimate oversight interests. I guess the legitimate ones. And provided over 7,600 pages of documents and has made numerous high-level officials available for public congressional testimony, transcribed interviews, and briefings. Yeah, a year later you did. The Department of Justice is choosing to call out their authority and hope to intimate the HOC into ceasing all pursuant activity. By citing that the Department of Justice's Attorney General has opened an investigation in Fast and Furious and that it is ongoing supplants nothing. It only ensures, by their words, that getting caught during a covert operation will not occur again. And I guess that's in their own words. Holder and Obama have been discussing how to handle the F&F scandal. Choosing to hide under the cover of U.S. presidency has only stood to fewer questions about Obama's participation, knowledge, and role in the operation. Earlier this week, Holder advised Obama to use his executive privilege card concerning the internal documents of the Operation Fast and Furious that would have significant damaging consequences. Okay, I could just imagine how that phone call went. Oh, President Obama? Yeah, no, this is Eric Holder. Man, they're so on to me for this thing. I'm not getting out of this. They won't let up. They got us on video lying. We've got documentation on this. What the hell? Oh, just calm down. Just calm down. Sorry, I don't do a good Obama. But, yeah, everything's going to be fine. I'm a little busy with Syria right now. We're trying to destabilize them. What do you want me for? Well, Obama, can you, Mrs. Holder speaking, could you, use your executive privilege to subvert these documents and suppress them? Well, Holder went on to explain that handing over the documents to Congress, quote, in his words, would inhibit candor of such executive branch deliberations in the future and significantly impair the executive branch's ability to respond independently and effectively to congressional oversight. Oh, they're so concerned that they respond effectively. Oh, it's so hard when you totally screw up like this and get caught doing something completely illegal that you shouldn't have, and now it's all over the media. In an effort to downplay Obama's use of executive privileges, Eric Schultz, White House spokesman, said, dating back to President Reagan, presidents have asserted executive privilege 24 times. That's true, though. I mean, this guy actually knows the number. President Obama has, you see, this is not a national security issue. If anything, it is because we gave guns to Mexican drug cartels. That, in a sense, is a national security issue, so I apologize. I was completely inaccurate about this. But from the angle that they always like to say, we can't tell you the truth because it's a matter of national security. Well, in this case, it is a matter of national security, and you must tell us the truth because, thank God, you got, like, Issa and other Boner he's going to speak up against. Boy, he's not going to waste this opportunity, is he? He's not associated with these guys. President Obama has gone longer without asserting that privilege in a congressional dispute than any president in the last 3 decades. I see, he hasn't used the executive card longer than any other president, so, well, he's going to have to real soon. However, House Speaker John Boehner points out that Obama's choice, quote, implies that the White House officials were either involved in the Fast and Furious operation or the cover-up that followed. That was my Boehner impersonation. Executive privilege can be overturned with a court order. However, history shows it resolved mostly through negotiations. The HOC has decided to hold Holder in contempt for failing to cooperate with the congressional inquiry into Fast and Furious. Holder asserted that the HOC action was divisive and does nothing to make any of our law enforcement agents safer. The unmitigated call of you, Mr. Holder, after doing this, our own government agents have been killed by these weapons, and you're saying that investigating this wrongdoing does nothing to make any of our law enforcement agents safer? Why? Wait, he's not entirely lying. Those guns are still out there. and we're still tracking them by seeing who they kill. So, no, from that standpoint, it's not alive. We don't believe it, and it's just all kind of like how you use those words. So he's right. He maintains, Holder maintains, that his job is to, I can't even read this quote from him. Holder's telling us now his job is to protect the American people, end quote. And this committee is subverting his efforts to execute his job properly. What, you're trying to get more guns down there in exchange for drugs? I don't understand. It's like, I don't understand. The family of Border Patrol agents Brian Terry, who was killed by members of Mexican drug cartels with guns that the Department of Justice provided them through Fast and Furious, has come forth to respond to Obama's use of executive privilege. Their statement reads that, quote, President Obama's assertion of executive privileges serves to compound this tragedy. It denies the Terry family and the American people the truth. The Terry family have been requesting for over a year and a half for the U.S. government to hold those responsible within the government to, as they, in their own words, justice and accountability. And in this case, the Terry family means it. They want real justice and real accountability. They recognize that it is very disappointing that the Terry family are now faced with an administration that seems more concerned with protecting themselves rather than revealing the truth behind Operation Fast and Furious. Well, heck yeah. I mean, if this goes back up to Obama, ouch, it's going to hurt him even more. I mean, the only people supporting Obama right now are the truly uninformed, ignorant masses. If you're one of them and you just heard that, you know what? We got 15 minutes left here. Feel free to call in. The number is 414-935-2951. That's 414-935-2951. I'd like to explain to you why Barack Obama doesn't give a flying freaking beep about any of us. How he's managed to brainwash a youth of people, and his propaganda team has managed to brainwash an army of welfare recipients that frankly don't know if the North Pole's real or not. That's right. I mean, if you call in, I might have to ask you some actual questions just to place the context in which you choose to debate. We need to know, and I don't want to minimize them. If you have an opinion, that's fine. It's just, I can explain why I have an opinion. I admit that my opinion is a dime a dozen like anybody else's. It's not as significant in the abstract of world crises going on and the real movers and shakers of this world, the people that actually pull the levers of power. But, you know, when I have an opinion, ideas are strengthened as they are shared, and that grows, and sooner or later people throw into the pool. It's a common thing. It's like, well, we share that opinion, or we ourselves already arrived at that opinion and we agree with you. And it's really even lovely when we all have done it based on facts that we ourselves have investigated and contemplated and chosen to believe from an educated point of discernment, rather than just because a TV show, an announcer, or a politician, known liars. When you see a politician speaking, you should just assume that what they're saying is a lie. If they're telling any part of truth, the only part that they're telling is enough to reinforce and make the lie believable. Oh, hey, Ingrid's coming on actually real soon here. She's up in the next 6 o'clock hour, so it's good. She's going to be doing I can't remember the name of the show. Ingrid's something hour. I apologize, Ingrid. I should know, but anyhow, she will be up here, so maybe I can squeeze out a couple more articles here. I've got like maybe 6 minutes left, so let me go. House panel votes to cite Holder for contempt of Congress. Thank God. Oh, this was one. I didn't get a chance to read this, but will Toledo, Ohio be the first major American city to be owned by China? This article from Michael Snyder, the economiccollapse.blog. He says that there are two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One way is by using the sword, and the other is by using debt. Fortunately, America is not in danger of being conquered by the sword right now, but America is being conquered by debt. The borrower is the servant of the lender, and today we owe China more than $1 trillion. Actually, 1.5 trillion, actually. By running a gigantic trade deficit with us, China has been able to become incredibly wealthy. Yeah, they're going to be the next world reserve currency, but I'd like to read more about that, but I just can't because I want to blow through all this material I got here that I didn't read. Oh yeah, hackers claim responsibility for Twitter outrage. Yesterday, ironically, we were attempting to social network this show, and we're getting on Twitter, and it doesn't work. Well, I found out that allegedly, hackers claim responsibility for Twitter outage. This source from Amy Willis, telegraph.co.uk. The popular site was unavailable for an hour and 40 minutes in countries all over the world, from Europe through to Asia, following the 2 service outages. The crash, prompting a flurry of complaints on rival sites, was the longest service disruption for several months. Thursday's crash was extensive enough that Twitter didn't even display its famous fail whale error. I never seen it, but I imagine it's a picture of a whale, and it's cute because fail and whale rhyme. And that's very appealing to our simple minds. Thank you. Or maybe I'm just missing the fun of life. I don't know. Well, anyhow, the fail whale error message didn't appear. Instead, the site just timed out and failed to load the page. Amazing. What else we got? Astonishing Chi-Com article provides keys to new global money secretly planned by elites. Ooh, I wish I could read this, but let me try real quick. Reform a monetary system. IMF should build multiple reserves currencies, including SDR, and supervise their assurance and cross-border capital flows. Today, the most urgent task for the G20 is to reform the international monetary system. With sharply fluctuating exchange rates, it is difficult to monitor international capital flows, identify financial risks in advance, and save the global system once a crisis happens. If the current international monetary system cannot be successfully reformed, a new great financial crisis will soon be upon us. So, the G20 should focus on its historical mission to urgently reform the international monetary system, that from the China Daily. The world's new monetary system is being construed as we write and speak. You can spot the evidence in various articles, both mainstream and alternative. This article will provide 2 such stories. First, there's an ETF Daily News article entitled Rigid Gold Market, a Secret Payoff to China. It complements the most important article from China Daily entitled Reform of the Monetary System. Together, these 2 recent articles may provide us with significant insights into what is really going on. According to the ETF Daily News, Western powers that be are secretly funneling gold to China in anticipation of a new monetary system now being constructed. You know, that's actually true. I reported on that last week. China buys gold directly from the Fed window, bypassing Wall Street, no more brokerages. So China is secretly buying up gold. If people knew that, it would drive gold up right now. So it's being suppressed so that they get it cheap. I guess it's because they're holding $1.5 trillion of our debt, which isn't even our debt. We didn't sign on to it, and we're not going to sign on to it, so whatever. China needs more gold to be part of the planned new world monetary order, so the Daily News article suggests. For those who believe in directed history, such a scenario is certainly believable. The global elites seem to be creating economic chaos in anticipation that they shall then be able to introduce a world currency, possibly one based on a bundle of currency and formally backed by gold. This will not happen all at once, but will happen over time. If the euro fails, this will surely be an elite setback. But that doesn't mean that the enterprise itself will be halted. The elites want to run the world and are willing to produce any amount of agony to get their way. Don't give up easily. The globalist currency may be run by the elite-controlled International Monetary Fund and could be built out of the current special drawing rights super currency that the IMF has been attempting to implement around the world. The China Daily article provides us with astonishing confirmation of what may be the IMF's role. China Daily is seen as a private mouthpiece of Chinese government policy. Reading between the lines, the 2 articles provides further evidence that China's top leaders, actually those secretly behind the public's leaders, are on board with the globalist plans of Western elites. This has been speculated about before because the paradigm that Western elites use is to ally with people at the very top of a society. often hostilities are commenced against such countries. The idea is always to control the topmost leaders while positioning the opposing country as a threat in order to consolidate total domestic control. In China, it's been speculated that some specific dynastic families are involved in controlling that great country and work with the Western banking families such as the Rothschilds. An alternative to this perspective is that of the three-headed show control that includes the elements of the communist leaders. Mao was supposedly a Soviet agent, and the top Soviets in turn were allied with the West. The Hong Kong tycoons later into the triads mafia. All right, well, we'd like to go on with the article, but we are running out of time. I got to pull off the air, so you guys, thank you for everything, and definitely listen to the show in the archive list. A lot of good stuff there. Michael Wordsworth has been breaking down the news for June 22nd, Friday, 2012. Peace out, everyone.